What's up, class? Welcome back. And for today's class, we're going to be creating this really cool glass effect that looks like a sphere. You can do this with about any picture you can imagine. Some photographs work a little bit better. I personally think landscapes, so pictures of the outdoors, look really good. And so I've given you two options to start with. You're going to do this twice, one with the photograph we provide and one with the photograph you research yourself at the end of class. So let's start off by choosing an option. I'm going to choose option 1 here. You can erase or hide the second option. You don't need it. First thing you're going to do is create a circle with your shape tool. So the shape tool is down here. You click and hold, you get a circle. You want to set your fill up here to be black. And you don't want a stroke for this, you just want a simple circle. Now we know to draw a perfect circle, we hold down shift. So I'm going to make a circle around the center roughly of my image. But just around there is fine. The size should be fairly large, nothing too small because then you won't really see the effect. Now what we need is a copy of our original. So I'm going to go back to my option 1. I'm going to hit Command J to make a copy, and I'm going to drag this copy layer on top of my shape. With this copy layer activated, I'm going to go up to Filter, Distort, and I'm going to hit Spherize. I want my amount to be at 100 and my mode to be normal. Press OK when you're happy, and now you're going to resize this sphered image to be roughly the size of the circle you created. You'll notice as you resize, the effect might disappear for a second. Don't worry, as soon as you hit enter, it will reappear. I notice in Photopea it's a little buggy, but once you hit enter, your spherize effect does come back. So you want this to be somewhat this size. You notice I'm not holding shift in this case because my original photo is rectangular, but I do want this to be square. So this is the one time, don't hold shift, you don't want it in proportion. When you're happy, hit enter. Now the next thing you want to do is get the shape that you created as a selection. So let's hold down Command, click on the shape thumbnail. Now the thumbnail of a layer is just a picture of the layer, okay? So if you hold down Command, it's a control on a PC. You click on the shape, you'll see that it gives you the circular shape. We need that. We're gonna make sure we're still on our copy layer and we're just gonna add a mask. It's just gonna get the edges out so the shape is now a circle. This is where we're gonna ask for your first check-in of the day just to see that you're following along. Now we wanna activate the copy, but not the mask we just created, the actual picture of the layer. Then we're gonna hold down Command or Control again and click on the circle. We need that selection one more time. We're gonna use that trick quite a few times in this technique. Now we're gonna go up to, with this layer activated, Filter, Distort, and this time we're going to put in a distortion called Twirl. You want the settings to be from 45 to 50. Anything too much, it'll look really funky. It's just going to pull the image a little bit for us so it's not perfectly aligned, that it looks kind of like it was going around glass. Now you're going to deselect, make a new layer, and then reactivate that circle, because we need that shape again. So again, I held down Control or Command, I click on the circle thumbnail, but I make sure I'm on this blank new layer I've created. Now we want to create highlights and shadows so that this looks like a real glass. To do that, we're going to activate our brush tool. We're going to make sure we're painting with black for our shadows. We're going to set our brush to be really zero hardness and fairly big brush. So 400 to 500 is good. And we're just going to paint along the edges. Now because we have something activated, our circle, we won't paint out of the edges no matter how messy we are. So I'm going to paint shadows on one side. Something like this is fine, just a little bit across the edge. I'm going to swap to white and paint highlights on the other side. Right, this looks really intense, but don't worry. We're going to change the blend mode from normal to soft light. We're also going to load the opacity a little bit. Anywhere from 50 to 60 is fine. So it's not as intense. If you feel like now this is too light, you could bring it up a little bit. We're going to deselect, and now we're going to make sure that we're on our copy layer again of our image. We're going to add an inner glow to this. Inner glow is under your effects. If you're in Photoshop, it's FX. If you're in Photopea, it says EFF. It's a layer style. We're going to hit inner glow. We want a little bit light coming in. Now the settings can be up to you to a certain degree. You do want this to look natural. I set my blend mode to overlay. I set the opacity to around 50 and the color to white. The size, the larger I feel like it looks kind of good. Too short, you can't really see it. So I put it to around 150. When I'm happy with these settings, I can hit OK. Now we're going to add one more new layer. I'm going to make sure this is all the way on the top after I make the new layer. And in this case, I'm going to make one more highlight. So I'm going to take my brush one more time. I might have to make my brush a little smaller. I'm just going to think about where some light would be hitting the ball on this. I'm going to put my light here. Now this time, I'm going to change this blend mode to be overlay. And I'm going to change the opacity to be about 50%. We don't want this to be too intense. It should just add a little bit of light like you would see in glass. Now we're on to our last new layer. Make one more new layer down here. This time I'm going to make a shadow of where this glass ball would be kind of reflected on the ground. So I'm going to paint with black, and I'm just going to make like a thin line, something smaller than that. Something like that is fine. I can take my move tool, kind of arrange it on the road. If I find it too big, I can shrink it down a little. Now this looks too intense, so I'm going to change this blend mode so that it is linear burn, and the opacity is about 65%. So we have this nice shadow on the ground. There you go, you've created a glass effect. Now the effect is broken down into quite a few steps, but they're very quick steps. So once you're done with your first image, we'd like you to save this. Then we'd like you to research your own photograph. Make sure the photograph is good quality. It would make sense that there's a sphere in it. I don't recommend anything with people in it because people in spheres look very distorted. When you're done with your second image in this technique, you're going to export both of them as a JPEG and give us a copy of a screenshot of your layers panel so we can see the technique you used. Good luck and be patient.